Hello and welcome to EPR with your favorite environmental enthusiasts, Nic and Laura. On today's episode, Laura and I discuss writing a good email. We talked to Kylie Johnson about environmental advocacy, pageants, and transitioning from country to city life. And finally, you can't taste food without saliva. In order for food to have a taste, chemicals from the food must first dissolve into your saliva. It's only once they've been dissolved in liquid that the chemicals can be detected by the receptors in our taste buds. And you can actually test this out, which is pretty cool. So if you want to, get out a clean towel and rub your tongue dry. Then place some dry foods on your tongue, one by one, such as a cookie, pretzel, or other kind of dry food. I love tortilla chips. This would be perfect. After the session, drink a glass of water and then repeat. And you should be able to tell the difference. How about that? It's pretty cool.
That is cool. That is crazy. I wish I'd known that trick when I had to eat Brussels sprouts when I was younger.
Yeah, exactly. So if your food is gross, just dry out your mouth and there you go. Done.
Then chew it really fast.
Yeah, really, really fast. Hit that music.
Registration is now open for NAEP's next Advanced NEPA workshop on Wednesday, November 9th from 10 to 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. These workshops are intended to provide participants with practical tips and tools about how to refine preparation and review of environmental documents prepared pursuant to the National Environmental Policy Act. Check it out at www.naep.org. So we keep asking for sponsors every week and no one's doing it. So we decided you were going to fill the spot with your own made up junk. So ready? You have like 30 seconds to come up with your idea and spit it out.
All right, here we go.
You're the comedian here, so like 2,
no pressure.
3, let it fly.
Let's see. Do you want to work out, but not really? Boy, oh boy, do I have a thing for you. This is the no flex. That's right, folks. You do nothing. You do absolutely nothing. And you look the same. Actually, nothing changes at all. It's not great. It's awful, but we will take your money. No problem. 3 easy payments, $19.99. And you can look exactly the same way you do right now. But also we'll throw this in for free. You get 1 compliment a day about how you look beautiful. You look great. You look amazing. You look wonderful. That's what you're getting for your $19.95. Your 3 easy payments of $19.99. That's what you get. Sponsor the show.
Ding, ding, ding. You did it. All right, people. Go visit the sponsor form on the website, please.
Let's get to our segment.
I think that people don't realize that emails aren't just emails. They're a form of communication.
That's correct, yeah.
And also, I think maybe like 5 years ago when WhatsApp and other things started to get popular, people thought, oh, we're not going to be using emails anymore. That is way not true.
Not true.
And as researching for this workshop, I discovered that, emails are still on the rise. They're actually being used more than they ever have before.
Yeah.
And I think probably because, there are risks involved with people taking conversations at work offline. I can't track it. I don't, so I think some of the things like Slack, internal communication, people are using things to talk internally, but still outward facing to clients and customers. You're still using email pretty heavily.
Yeah, I would argue even internally, you have to do the same thing with groups of people that you don't know.
Right?
Dawson's 1,000 people. I talk with the construction crew semi-regularly, but it's always through email because I don't know them that well. I don't work with them on a daily basis. And it's almost like a marker, like, hey, don't forget about me. Come back to this,
Yeah. So I have a formula for emails that you've seen from me probably.
Yeah.
And basically you have to have a greeting and you have to use the person's name. It has to be the right name.
It should be correct. And I'm going to pause you here because this is very, very important to people like me who have 2 first names. My name is Nicholas Frederick, not Frederick Nicholas. That guy is way cooler than me. And if you decide that my first name is Frederick, do not call me Fred. All right? Because you do not know if I go by that or Frederick. Come on. What are we doing?
Right.
Anyways.
So first thing right here, that's why you got to get the name right because you're automatically going to piss somebody off.
Yeah.
Just don't think it's a big deal. It may not be to you and it may not be to them, but there are some people who it is. And I also find that if I get an email from someone high up in leadership and they should know me and they call me Lauren or Lori or something instead, that's very offensive. Like, we've talked, you should know who I am.
Honestly, right? It's kind of a screening tool too, right? Like, if someone doesn't know your actual name, you can almost be like, okay, first, make sure it's not spam. Second, if it's somebody who's trying to reach you that doesn't know you, you can be like, well, I don't have to ignore this per se, but this is less important.
Right. Recently, I got one from somebody who tried to pretend they knew me, and they said, hi, comma, so-and-so asked me to reach out to you because of whatever. And I was like, this is obviously sent blind copy to a million other people. So no, thank you. Bye-bye. Right. So in a lot of cases, it makes sense. I use it as a screening tool in my hiring. If I use my name and they know my name and they email me with interest and don't say, hi, Laura, back, I want to know that you can write a professional email. So there, first thing, name and greeting, good morning, hi, hello, something. But the next thing is something.
Like I would argue, like, so my name, right? NIC, there's a reason, there's a reason for that. I don't have an H in my name. It's me and Nick Cage spelling it this way, us against the world, right? Whatever. But when I write an email, it's very interesting. I always pay attention to who gives me the C or the K or calls me Fred, right? I always pay attention to that. It's like, okay, so if you are somebody who has an eye for detail, you'll get my name right. If you're not, then you won't. And I'll know that. It's like just a thing to put in my memory bank,
Right. That's the point. And then if I email you and I say Nick, N-I-C-K or something, which is what I'm used to, and then you reply and you put N-I-C, I will immediately say, oh my gosh, sorry, Nick. You know what I mean? I'll acknowledge it. Like, didn't know. Now I know.
Right. And
same thing with she, he, and they. If I call you she, he, and you prefer they, and I didn't know it, I will correct that when I see that you've replied that way. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that some sort of nicety. Don't jump right into the work. I've been very guilty of that. Like, I'm so straight business.
Give me the thing.
But with this formula, the formula saves you from looking like a business-driven a-hole who doesn't care about anybody but yourself. So, and it's so easy. It takes a second. It's like, if it's Monday, it's hope you had a great weekend. If it's Tuesday, hope your week's off to a good start. You can see where this goes. Friday, happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday is easy. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, and you can change that up to any number of things. Could be, hey, it was great to see you last week. Personalize the thing. Right. Which then is just, it's respectful. If you're talking to somebody who does seem contentious, it kind of just says, well, I'm still taking this down to a cordial level, whatever the conversation is. Yeah. And then your content, which of course has to be clear and succinct and all those things. And we could do an entire other thing on that, which is why I had a 3-hour workshop on writing emails. And then, so the last thing is a sign off, like a real sign off, best regards, whatever that you need that to be, and your actual name. I hate when someone emails me and they're like, oh, I need all this stuff from you. And then doesn't even say like, thank you, have a nice day. Appreciate you, something, just round it out, you got the bookends, the greeting and the sign off.
Thank you for your time. I mean, there's so many options for them. And I like I say, a name is really important. We have like taglines, like most companies will have like taglines that'll have like your block that has your information, name information, which is great. It's good. It should be there. But yeah, if you like my full name, Nicholas, right, that's part of my block. I don't go by that. Like if I get called Nicholas, I'm in trouble. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's my mom telling me to, I did something wrong. So Nick, I always sign everything with the name I go by.
Right. And then, that signature block thing, that's still important too. I can't tell you how many times I have tried to find someone's contact info, whether it's their website or their phone number or something. And I'm digging for 15 minutes and they don't have that. Their automatic reply is like just their name or nothing. And you're like, ah. So it's all about being helpful and cordial. And like you said, having attention to details, being respectful. So there it is. That's the role model email formula y'all have now.
There you go. No more bad emails. I'll never get another crappy one ever again. That's good stuff.
You still get them. You won't give them.
Well, yeah.
You'll recognize the bad ones.
Yeah. We'll send them to you. Send all our bad ones to Laura. And that's Laura Thorne at, no, I'm kidding.
Spell it right.
Laura Thorny. All right. That's good. Let's get to our interview.
Welcome back to EPR. Today we have Kylie Johnson, Southwest Ohio Regional Director at Ohio Environmental Council on the show. Welcome, Kylie.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'm super excited to have someone here from the Midwest and even more so close to my birth city in Lima, Ohio. So you're in Cincinnati now. Did you grow up in Ohio?
Yes, I'm an Ohio native. I'm originally from Southeast Ohio, though, in a small town called Zanesville. grew up there on an 86-acre family farm surrounded by woodlands with a creek that ran through the property. So just, a nature lover from the start.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's awesome. How did you choose conservation science before you got into college?
Yeah, so I knew, caring about the environment, that I wanted to go into an environmental field, but it's really difficult, especially if you don't have mentors to guide you to know where that could be, because it's, so all encompassing. And when I was in high school, I worked at a grocery store, and I regularly would bag groceries for this gentleman who turned out to be the director of the conservation sciences program. So just building that relationship with him while I was bagging his groceries and learning about the program, he encouraged me to apply. And that's just one of those moments in life where you're just sort of at the right place at the right time. And you never know what opportunities are going to arise as you have conversations with people.
Yeah, that's awesome. We actually hear that quite a bit. So being open to those opportunities and listening and paying attention when you see that is great. And you're a former Miss Southeastern Ohio, Miss Northeast Ohio, and Miss Muskingum Valley. Did I say that right?
That's correct. Yes, I'm impressed that you said Muskingum right.
It's my
it's
Ohio nativeness.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, that's super incredible. And you told us in our show notes that the pageant isn't the same today as people might think. So how did you get into that? And then how did it end up shaping your career? Because I know it played kind of a role in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say this is something that I don't share professionally very often, but I'm really happy to talk about it now. And this is something that I started back when I was attending Muskingum University for undergrad. It was my sophomore year there, and my best friend was in the same program as me for conservation science. And she had been competing in the Miss America program for a couple years and said, "Hey, you should do this with me. You should compete in this Muskingum Valley program." And I said, no. I turned her down for a long time because, as I said, I grew up on a farm. I was the shy girl that didn't like to wear makeup or heels or dress up or do any of that. And the thought of being on stage in front of an audience was terrifying. But she eventually wore me down. And I think part of that was there was just this voice inside of me saying, do it, like push yourself, step outside of your comfort zone. And I completely shocked my family. I shocked myself by doing it, but I'm so glad that I did because a lot of times people think of the Miss America program as a beauty pageant, or someone would say, "Oh, you're a beauty queen." And I would correct them to say that Miss America is one of the largest providers of scholarship for women in the country. And I earned personally over $10,000 in scholarships while I competed in the program. And not only that, but its main focus is on community service. So you come with a platform in mind that if you are a title holder that you work with the community on, mine being Go Green, think globally, act locally. So it goes right along with my passions. And then it just really pushes you with interview skills, making sure that you're up to date on current events and can talk about them. And there's also the talent portion of the competition as well, which I've been a violinist since sixth grade. So I was able to incorporate that. So really just bringing all of those different parts of life and skills that are important to build to attention, and just helping me along in my professional career as well, especially with the interview skills.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I appreciate you sharing it. I think for us in sharing people's backgrounds and how they got into their jobs and stuff, it's important for people to hear that there are all kinds of paths, and whatever your interest is, and also just pushing outside your comfort zone. There's no one makeup of an environmental scientist or conservationist. Yeah. How did doing the interviews with Miss America help you? Have you seen that help you in your job?
Oh, yes. I think interview skills are so important. In previous positions that I've applied for, in my position currently, I was told there were over 200 applicants for my position. And it's very competitive in the environmental field, or in many job fields, but especially ours, I would say. And so making sure that you have good interview skills, good interpersonal skills can really give you that edge, because you could be just as qualified as somebody else. But if you have those interview skills on top of it, that's really going to set you apart in the candidate pool.
What do you think are those skills? What would you say is one of the more important things that help you get the job you have now?
I would say confidence for sure. Just making sure that you have excellent communication skills. And, that's always fluid. It depends on the day, right?
Right.
And making that connection with the people that are interviewing you too, and showing them that you're not just a robot or this something represented, a person represented on a piece of paper, but you're an actual person with different interests and skills that culminate to make you the best candidate for the position.
Yeah, that's great. And, it's a good segue into what you're currently doing. So what do you do in your current role as the regional director of the Ohio Environmental Council?
Yeah, so I'll start with the Ohio Environmental Council and who we are. We're over a 50-year-old nonprofit environmental advocacy organization with a mission of securing healthy air, land, water, and a strong democracy for all Ohioans. And about 6 years ago, OEC started the field advocacy program to have regional directors in each different region of our state to really make sure that we're making progress at the local level. And we've seen that you can still have wins and successes at the local level, even if there's poor national or state leadership when it comes to protecting the environment. And certainly have seen that in Southwest Ohio with Cincinnati showing up as a national leader in sustainability in a lot of the work that they're doing. And so I've been in this role for a year and a half now, and I have mostly been focused in on building relationships with our elected leaders, our environmental champions that are in office, supporting them and advocating for environmental policies that are going to protect communities, especially those that are most vulnerable to the worst impacts of climate change, and also building relationships and working to expand the environmental movement and expand those different communities and voices that have historically been left out of this work and making sure that they're heard.
Yeah. And so when you approach this role, there's a lot of parts to that. There's a lot of nuances to it. Did you have a plan of attack on your own when you first started, or how did you kind of develop how you do all of these different things?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've been in Cincinnati for 10 years now. And the 8.5 years before I started this role, I was working in the environmental education field. And so I had been working for a long time to already establish relationships within the community and strong networks. And what I love is that the environmental network here is very supportive of one another and all wants to work together to collaboratively to make a difference. And all of those relationships really helped me to hit the ground running as I got started in this role. So really in the beginning, it was just about letting everyone know that OEC has a presence and sharing what it is that we can do to support communities here, and how also the work that we do locally could propel up to have statewide impacts as well. So I think just the foundation of all of that is making sure that we have those strong relationships in place. And then after that, it's really finding similar lanes that other organizations or groups are working in that closely align with the work that we're doing.
Yeah. And is that, is that a 40-hour-a-week thing, or do you have to do like a lot of extra time and energy and effort to get to that? At least when you start making those relationships, is it more effort then?
That's a great question. I know it ebbs and flows depending on time of year too. Right now, we're in a busy election season right now. Right. So OEC is really great about promoting work-life balance. But, there are times that you just need to put in extra work because it's the work that needs done. And that's the thing about being in the environmental field is that you're passionate about the work. So sometimes it's okay to go the extra mile to make it happen. So yeah, it just depends on the time of year.
Yeah, which is perfect. That's perfect. And I also hear there's congratulations in order because you've been appointed to the Green Cincinnati Planning Steering Committee and chair of the Advocacy, Education, and Outreach Subcommittee. So what are the current objectives for that, and where are you in the process?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So the Green Cincinnati Plan, for those that don't know, is the climate action plan for the city of Cincinnati. The first one was established back in 2008, and every 5 years, rather, it's been updated. And now we're working to update for 2023. And so that effort started back in May with a kickoff at the Cincinnati Zoo. And we had over 300 people in attendance at this meeting. So that just shows you how much energy and enthusiasm there is in Cincinnati for this community and advancing sustainability. And so since then, there have been a set of different community meetings to really make sure that we have diverse voices at the table providing input on these plans, and the plans being focused on building a city that's more sustainable, equitable, and resilient. And what's great about the Green Cincinnati plan is that every iteration has improved. There have been a lot of lessons learned. And this iteration of the plan, the main focus is equity and environmental justice, which has been mentioned in past plans, but now every part of the plan has this, and making sure that we're using those pieces in all of the different focus areas, which there are 8 of them. So we're through that community engagement process, and now the plan is being drafted, and there are other key stakeholders that are going to be reviewing the plan, and hopefully all of that will result in the adoption by City Council in early spring.
Very cool.
That's awesome. So Cincinnati, we all know that Cleveland rocks for various reasons.
Come on.
Tell us what's going on in Cincinnati. So you moved from country girl, you said, and what's that transition been like moving into the city, and what now, I guess, if you had the choice to go back, would keep you in Cincinnati?
Oh, it was a tough transition for me at first 10 years ago. Just all of the hustle and bustle of city life, which now I've become accustomed to. And I think it would be difficult to leave, especially with the great network of friends and relationships that I've built here. I do love getting back to Zanesville to get out and clear my head as much as possible. And I think that the hard thing was that I am an introvert by nature. So needing that peace and quiet was important. But it's been great because I have a 2-year-old Australian Shepherd puppy. I guess he's not a puppy anymore. He'll always be a puppy in my heart. But I take him to Cincinnati parks as much as possible and check out all the hiking trails there. So that just helps keep me centered. But there's so much going on in Cincinnati. A couple weeks ago, we had the International Blink Festival. Have you heard of that?
No, what's that?
You'll have to check it out. Blink Cincinnati. It's an arts and lights and music festival that happens all across the city. There are murals painted and projection mapping on the murals along with music. They had a drone show over the Ohio River, and they have over 1 million people that come from all over the world, and international artists that are involved too. So Cincinnati's really put itself on the map, not just for the environmental and sustainability work that's happening, but also arts and culture too.
Oh, I love that. That's great.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's interesting. So you have to have your time to yourself. You have to have this job that's pretty demanding, has lots of different parts. But we also know you're an avid learner, which is, speaks right to me. How do you make the time for doing all this new learning and bringing in these new ideas, new thoughts when you have so much going on? How do you prioritize that?
I would say that is one of the biggest challenges I've found in my professional career. And I really love to talk to others in the environmental career about this too, because that creativity component is so important in your job. And you don't realize it, but taking that time for rest and relaxation is usually when you have your best ideas when it comes to work. Or I'll be in the shower, and that's when I have some ideas that I wasn't even thinking about, and it'll pop up. Or going on a hike, the same thing. And I find myself kind of multitasking with those. I absolutely love listening to podcasts and learning and soaking up as much information as I can. So I usually put on my favorite podcast while I do my workouts in the evenings, or while I'm driving to pick my dog up from daycare. But I've been trying to find more of those little moments throughout the day, just taking 10 minutes to myself without Slack messages dinging on my computer, without my phone notifications going off, and just clearing your mind for those minutes can really help with that creative aspect.
Oh, that's perfect. So, okay. Well, besides EPR, which is obviously your favorite podcast, what is your second favorite podcast that you like to listen to?
My second, I am subscribed to EPR. I've really enjoyed some of the recent episodes. My favorite podcast is Impact Theory by Tom Bilyeu.
Interesting. Yeah.
Have you heard of that one?
No. What's it about?
Oh, it's fantastic. Tom Bilyeu, he and his wife created Quest Nutrition, and now they've gone on to do a lot of other ventures, but it's mostly a professional development podcast. He also has health professionals on there as well. So I learn a lot about health, but a lot about mindfulness or just different things that you can apply in your professional world too.
Really cool. That's awesome. And, looking through your bio and your show notes, you have a lot of really incredible field stories. And we do a segment here called Field Notes, where we talk about our experiences working as environmental professionals in the field. And we're going to start with beekeeping and work our way up to something wild and crazy that I cannot wait to get to. But tell us a little bit about how you got into beekeeping.
I got into beekeeping when I was working at the Civic Garden Center of Greater Cincinnati. That's where I managed for 7 years the Green Learning Station, which used to be an old gas station that was retrofitted and turned into a LEED Platinum certified environmental education center and demonstration site for green infrastructure. And the Civic Garden Center is housed on a Cincinnati park called the Houck Botanic Gardens. A lot of people call it the best kept secret in Cincinnati because it's this 8 acres of land right in the middle of the city. And you could drive right past it and not even realize that there's this beautiful park back there. So my coworker and I at the time talked about getting bees on the property. We went through the whole process to make sure it was okay. And I was just there learning as a beekeeper with this Langstroth hive that we had in our Serenity Garden. And then my coworker left. And so I became the prime beekeeper. And from there, we got an observation hive, one with the glass panes to put inside the Green Learning Station, which was fantastic because students coming for field trips could see the bees up close and personal. And so many students were terrified of bees. A lot of these are from urban schools, didn't, grow up with access to nature. And so having that opportunity to see them up close and personal was really transformative and helped them look at bees in a different way as pollinators and important for our environment instead of something that's scary.
Oh, that's such a wonderful story. And, it's funny though, you talked a little bit about, growing up in a rural area, coming to a big city. And, this is like our, what I would call kind of like a NEPA-ish field note, but you had to, present in front of large crowds, and it may not have always gone well. So how did you kind of develop a thick skin dealing with all of that? What were you dealing with, and how did you develop that thicker skin?
Yeah, so I think you're referring to when I first moved to Cincinnati, I was working for the National Nonprofit Alliance for Climate Education, which was the name at the time. Now it's Action for the Climate Emergency. And I was giving presentations to students, some in small classrooms, some auditoriums full of 500 students at a time. And it was a brand new experience for me. Other than competing in the Miss America program, I had never been on stage where I could be interacting with audiences that way. And sometimes teachers who didn't have the same viewpoints about climate change would ask me tough questions when I was on stage. And, it's one of those things where it just takes repetition and experience over time to do it, to develop that thick skin. It doesn't always go perfectly, but you have to remember a lot of times you're the one that's internalizing these mistakes or what you think of as so-called failures, but those mistakes are often the best teachers. And you look at successful people and you don't see all of those bumps in the road along the way, but we all have them. And that's what all helps us improve as we go.
Oh, what a brilliant answer. Too good, actually. So, no, it's absolutely true. And I'm going to ask you this follow-up here. So when you do have those mistakes, those bumps in the road, right? How do you go back up again?
It probably depends on your personality type. I would say, first of all, is how you need to internalize it and process it. For me, as I mentioned, being an introvert, it's something that I want to think about and analyze myself before then sharing with the people that are close in my life for feedback, which I think is so important. You need to get those thoughts out of your head, feelings of imposter syndrome or doubt, and you need to talk about it with others. And that really helps you through the process. But I call myself a recovering perfectionist. It's always a work in progress. To realize that perfect is the enemy of progress, and not thinking of those mistakes as failures, but as pieces that are helping strengthen you for the next phase of your career and the next phase of your life. So I think that's really the process for me of internalizing those and moving forward and getting better.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's a really, really great answer. Thank you. Okay. We have to clear out a little bit here because this is just, I love this story. And I know a little bit about, like, in endangered species survival plans, and, sometimes human interaction can be a detriment to the conservation of the species. And you have a great story about that exact thing, working with whooping cranes. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, it was Mississippi sandhill cranes, actually. So I'll set the context here a little bit. So when I was an undergrad at Muskingum University, my first internship experience was at the Audubon Species Survival Center, which is in New Orleans, Louisiana. And I spent a summer there working at the center, which is this 1,200 acre expanse of land that's owned by the U.S. Coast Guard in the city of New Orleans down by the Mississippi River. And when you drive up to the complex, I kid you not, it seems just like Jurassic Park. There are multiple sets of gates to get into the complex. And once you're inside, there is a lot of captive care going on for different endangered species: clouded leopards, elands, bongo antelope, African wildcats, and Mississippi sandhill cranes. So there's 8 acres of the land dedicated to helping their population. So the Mississippi sandhill crane, back in 1975, their population was dangerously low. There was only about 30 to 35 birds left in existence. So there was the Mississippi Sandhill Crane National Wildlife Refuge that was created to help support them. And then the Audubon Species Survival Center was working on programs to help breed them and then release them back into the wild. So as an intern, I was helping to raise these chicks one summer that we were going to release back into the refuge. But you don't want the chicks to imprint on humans. So we had to wear a crane costume, which was essentially this big gray canvas suit with a netted hood. And then I would hold a little crane puppet head as well, which we would use to feed them. And then as the chicks would get older, you would have to take them on walks 3 times a day to make sure that their feet would grow properly. Otherwise, they would rotate improperly. And so you're outside in 100-degree weather in the middle of summer in New Orleans, 100% humidity, wearing this really heavy canvas outfit, purring like a bird as you walk around with these chicks. It was certainly a character building summer, and also just a fun adventure too. Also, New Orleans, being down south, Laura, you said you're from Florida. So, all kinds of scary creatures there, yes. Poisonous creatures. So I would open the door to our intern trailer at night, and there'd be a cottonmouth snake sitting there in front of the door, or, a black widow spiders. So it could be treacherous, but that was part of the fun adventure too.
Please tell me, are there pictures of this somewhere? You have pictures?
There are pictures of this, yes. Oh, I'll have to send you one. And I do have a picture of me in that outfit holding a scythe, because we'd have to go in, the grass would grow really high in the pens. And again, we couldn't let the birds see us. So we would use the scythe. So I really looked like the Grim Reaper in some of the pictures that I have.
Yeah. Oh, that's just perfect. My internship, not quite as cool. That's really awesome. But speaking of really cool things, you also have some really amazing hobbies. So violin, weightlifting. You already mentioned hiking with your cutie Australian Shepherd. You still play violin?
I do, but admittedly not as much as I would like.
Yeah.
Again, that's one of those things when you become a professional and you become so focused on your career that at times you lose sight of your hobbies and your passions. But it is something that I've been picking up again. And it really is like riding a bike. You're a little rusty after coming back to playing, but it just becomes second nature again. So I've recently formed calluses again on my hand from plucking on the strings. But it's certainly something that I want to continue. Again, music is such an important creative outlet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I love scientists who are also artistic, work in all parts of the brain and really just understanding that you can do them both. You don't have to just be one or the other. I also have my cello here. I can see it across from me in the room, and I've been playing it also again recently. And same thing. I thought, oh God, if I pick this up and I have to start over, but I didn't. It was pretty easy to jump right back in, which was very nice. But one thing I have not jumped into is weightlifting. So how long have you been doing that? And that it sounded like you still do.
Yeah, I think I started strength training back in high school. So this is something that I'm grateful to my dad for teaching me about. We had something called a solo flex, which I think is like the original version of the bow flex.
I remember that. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in our basement. So he set me up with a program, and that was really helpful. I was playing softball and soccer in high school. And just the more that I've listened to all of these health podcasts, especially for women, the importance of strength training and keeping muscle, and also just helping with your energy level. So before the pandemic, I had bought my own weight set. I have a bench and a bar. Then my husband and I moved in together, and now we live in a condo 5 minutes from downtown Cincinnati. And instead of the place where our dining room table should be, that's where I have my weight bench. He's not too thrilled about that, but he's, also supportive of my hobbies. And it was super helpful for both of us during the pandemic and all the shutdowns. He couldn't get to his gym, so he was able to use my equipment too.
That's great. I love that.
Did you give him a little, now it's good, right? Now?
Told you so. Told you so.
Yeah.
You can eat anywhere.
Right, exactly. So we are running out of time, but is there anything else you'd like to talk about before we let you go?
I wanted to mention one other thing about the Green Cincinnati plan. We were talking about that. That's the project I'm working on right now that I'm very excited to be involved in, because it's going to set the trajectory for the next 5 years and beyond in Cincinnati. The 2018 version of that plan, the overall goal was to reduce carbon emissions by 80% by 2050. And I'm excited to share that the update of the plan, the goal is to reach carbon neutrality by 2050 with a near-term reduction 50% by 2030. And those are very aggressive, just with the latest science coming out saying that we need to be doing more to help combat climate change. And I'm just so proud of Cincinnati and the collective effort that's being put into this work to make that happen, and to hopefully show the rest of the nation and set an example for others to do the same.
Yeah. Well, what is in the plan? What are some of the more specific action items that you've seen from, that have actually been updated from 2018 to 2022? How are we moving forward?
So a lot of the priority actions are still being drafted currently, since we're analyzing all that input that's coming from the community on what should these recommendations be. Because in 2018, there were 80 different recommendations to help with carbon emissions reductions. We're trying to hone in a little bit on that, so the plan isn't 250 pages long to read.
Right.
So we're becoming more focused on that. But I will say that there are 8 different focus areas of the plan. The section that I'm chairing is the advocacy, education, and outreach section of the plan, which really weaves into all of the other sections. Some examples of the others are zero waste, mobility, food. So looking at just all these different areas of our lives and what we can do to help reduce carbon emissions.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really interesting. And so when you say advocacy, and here I am rambling on at the end, but when you say advocacy, what does that mean? What does that look like?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because excitingly, this is the first time that advocacy has been included in the Green Cincinnati plan. In 2018, there was an education and outreach section, but the community has spoken and said they really want advocacy to be included. So that's been part of these community meetings, is getting input of what does this look like? What should be included? And a lot of it is working to advocate for more funding to help with some of these initiatives and pushing them along. So it's exciting to see what the final draft of that plan will look like. And from what I can tell, I've read many different climate action plans, and there are very few that have advocacy as part of that plan. So hopefully, again, this will help set an example for others to do the same.
That is very, very neat. I appreciate that. I'm glad that it's in there. Looking forward to seeing the plan come out. And before we let you go, where can people get in touch with you?
People can get in touch with me on LinkedIn. It's Kylie Jane Johnson.
All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's our show. Thank you, Kylie, for joining us today. Please be sure to check us out each and every Friday. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. See you, everybody.
Bye.